Once upon a time, there was a small village tucked away in the mountains. The villagers lived in peace and harmony, and their lives were filled with simple pleasures. They were a God-fearing community, and their faith was at the core of their daily lives. They would gather every Sunday to pray and sing hymns in their small chapel, which was nestled in the heart of the village. One day, a young man named Jacob arrived in the village. He was a wanderer, and his travels had taken him far and wide. He was a man of few words, but the villagers welcomed him with open arms. Jacob was a skilled carpenter, and he offered to help the villagers build a new church. The villagers were delighted, and they eagerly accepted his offer. Jacob worked tirelessly, and soon the new church was ready. It was a magnificent building, with stained glass windows and a towering spire. The villagers were proud of their new church, and they looked forward to the day when they could worship in it. But something strange began to happen in the village. The villagers became divided, and they began to argue and fight with each other. Some wanted to use the new church for themselves, while others wanted to keep the old chapel. The village was in turmoil, and it seemed as though the peace and harmony that once existed had vanished. One day, Jacob stood up in the middle of the village square and spoke to the villagers. "Brothers and sisters," he said, "why are we fighting amongst ourselves? We are all children of God, and we should be working together to build His kingdom on earth." The villagers were silent, and Jacob continued, "The church is not a building. It is the people who worship within it. We should not be fighting over a building. We should be coming together to worship God." The villagers were moved by Jacob's words, and they began to see the error of their ways. They realized that their faith was not in the building, but in their relationship with God. They began to come together once again, praying and singing hymns in their old chapel. Jacob continued to work in the village, and he became a beloved member of the community. He taught the villagers how to work together, and how to put their faith into action. He showed them that by working together, they could achieve great things. Years passed, and the village grew and prospered. The villagers continued to come together to worship God, and their faith grew stronger with each passing day. Jacob became an elder of the village, and he was loved and respected by all. One day, Jacob gathered the villagers together once again. "My time here is coming to an end," he said. "But before I leave, I want to tell you a story." The villagers gathered around Jacob, eager to hear what he had to say. A long time ago, there was a man who was traveling through a desert. He was lost and alone, and he was desperate for water. He searched for days, but he could not find any water. He was about to give up hope when he came across a well. The man was overjoyed, and he ran to the well to get a drink. But when he looked down into the well, he saw that the water was dirty and murky. He was afraid to drink it, for fear that he would become sick. But then he remembered something that his father had told him. "Son," his father had said, "even if the water is dirty, it is still water. And in the desert, water is life." The man realized that his father was right. He drank the water from the well, and it quenched his thirst. It was the best water he had ever tasted. Jacob paused. The man continued on his journey, but he never forgot the lesson he had learned. He realized that sometimes in life, things may not be perfect. But we must still take what we have and make the best of it. We must trust in God and have faith that He will guide us on our journey. The villagers listened intently to Jacob's story, and they understood the message he was trying to convey. Jacob continued, "The church is like that well. It may not be perfect, but it is still a place where we can come together to worship God. We must not let our differences divide us. Instead, we must work together, and make the best of what we have." The villagers nodded in agreement, and they realized that their faith was more important than any building. Jacob said his goodbyes to the villagers, and he left the village to continue on his journey. The villagers continued to come together to worship God, and their faith grew stronger with each passing day. Years later, the villagers built a monument in honor of Jacob. They knew that they would never forget the lessons he had taught them. They knew that their faith was more important than any building, and that by working together, they could achieve great things. And so, the village continued to thrive, and the people continued to come together to worship God. They never forgot the lessons they had learned from Jacob, and they knew that their faith would guide them on their journey, no matter where it may lead.